So you've probably been hearing about a guy named Arthur Jones recently. He is currently the only one running on the Republican side of the race in Illinois' 3rd Congressional District. To make it short, he is downright insane. He really seems to want to harp back to not even really, because people like Arthur Jones, they're not even the normal breed of conservative. They are, I think a lot of them call themselves like paleo-conservative, which is supposed to be the even more, like you want it like it was in the 1950s, we want it like it was in the 1850s. You know, for instance, a lot of people, if you know who Pat Buchanan is, if you're a little older, he's pretty much the only one who's still around. Some would also lump Strom Thurmond in with people like Arthur Jones, and may I remind you, Strom Thurmond was the one who, I kid you not, held the longest filibuster, a day-long filibuster, against the civil rights legislation. He was also the one who switched from Democrat to Republican in 1964, for obvious reasons, and continued being elected until 2003, until he died at 101 years old. And then when he was like 90, his black daughter just came out of nowhere. But the thing that makes this man, Arthur Jones, just so great is he denies the Holocaust. You ready? His website contains a section such as Holocaust with a question mark, which features a statement that says there is no proof such a so-called Holocaust ever took place anywhere in Europe against the Jews. In another section called Hate Speech, the Jones campaign cites a document that includes quotes from American presidents Charles Lindbergh and the Bible meant to suggest racial and religious supremacy. He has also been involved with anti-Semitic and racist groups since the 1970s. So this is the end result of the crazy alt-righters, because they give men like this a voice. And they continue and they run for Congress completely unopposed. But some other Republicans are trying to come out against him, though. Although they're going to do the same thing. I was calling it. They were going to do it with Roy Moore. Luckily, Roy Moore lost. But if he actually gets into office, I doubt he's going to, but if he does, remember, they're going to be shaking his hand going, let's do some tax cuts. Just, oh my god. And then, you ready for this? You ready for this? He supported Donald Trump in the 2016 election. However, expressed concern that Jared Kushner was a Jew. And now he's saying he regrets voting for Donald Trump because he surrounded himself with Jews. But, you know, it's easy to laugh at people like this, but what I feel like that does is it makes it so they're just a joke, because this guy actually has a policy he wants to implement too. And it's essentially insane. Remember how I just said, for instance, that Republicans will be shaking his hand saying, let's do some tax cuts? Well, Arthur Jones believes in the ultimate tax cut, repeal the income tax. So for all those people who are saying Hitler was a socialist, I guess not even Hitler's supporters believe that. The tax code of the federal government is now incredibly long, 76,000 pages of rules and regulations long. No single human being on earth is capable of understanding this much information. Buried in that bureaucratic mess are all kinds of special exemptions for business and corporations, allowing them to pay the very least amount of taxes, or in some cases, no taxes at all. Okay, so I actually agree with you on this. That is a problem. And then he's going to go for the completely wrong solution. A fair tax would be a flat 10% sales tax. What? Those who have a lot of money to spend would pay more, and those who have less spare money or are more fragile would pay less. Yes, and then the wealth trickles down, Arthur. I've heard that before. But one, that would be a tax increase on pretty much everyone, because as of right now, sales taxes are only placed on the state level, and on some cases local levels. So if we want to do things like, say, give this man a paycheck, we're going to have to raise it from, we'll say typically it's around 5% sales tax to 15%, including the federal tax. That would be a huge issue and would essentially destroy the middle class. Or at least what little bits of a middle class we have left. And it's always confusing to me, because the idea of a flat tax essentially puts the most burden on the people with less money to pay it. You think the guy with $100,000 a year and the guy with $10,000 a year can pay the exact same amount of taxes? You're crazy. You're just crazy at that point. Those who... Okay. And by the way, this idea that those who have the money to spend would pay more, yeah, and then the wealth trickles down. This is supply side, this is Reaganomics, and it doesn't work. And those who currently pay no taxes, such as illegal aliens, would pay the same rate as everyone else. So you're admitting illegals pay sales tax. The next one is repeal Obamacare, affordable health care for Americans only. Okay, one, hey moron, we've essentially already done that more or less. Donald Trump has cut at least half the provisions of Obamacare at this point. And two, what do you mean for Americans only? He keeps saying that too. You know, is there a provision in Obamacare that says illegals can also get affordable health care? Because it's in section of it's somewhere in there. Look, Obamacare is like a lot of pages, and I don't even know what it's called. I keep just searching the Obamacare Act, and I get nothing. I get this Affordable Care Act thing. How am I supposed to find it when I can't even find the actual legislation? And then after that, I kid you not, this is 3 in a row, he titled his next big point, Pro-Life, Yes. Homosexual Agenda. No. Oh god, that's a phrase I haven't heard in a while. Homosexual Agenda. And then I just read the first sentence of this, I genuinely just bursted out laughing. The homosexual, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, he didn't just put LGBT, he made sure to write them out, movement is a blatant assault on the Christian-based foundation of this country that doesn't exist. They seek to uproot and overthrow all the moral teachings of the Christian religion on which all our laws are based. Source, please. Because there are laws that allow us to eat shellfish, so I don't think that's true, Arthur. And then he goes into a rant about Planned Parenthood. He puts that in all caps. He puts Planned Parenthood in all caps, by the way. And calls it a federally funded organization, even though, you know, the money doesn't go to abortions. That's just an objective fact. That's what the Hyde Amendment is. It's been in law since 2 years after Roe v. Wade. That's just a downright lie. By the way, another point is what he calls the Neighborhood Amendment, in which he makes up this huge conspiracy about how the federal government is taking these neighborhoods that are white, straight, Christian, all the things that this man only supports, and then placing all those dirty minorities in there. He has no proof of this, by the way. There's a part that is underlined, mind you, but it does not link to a source. He just underlined it so you'd think there's a source. Um, and his idea is once they hit 10% non-white, non-Christian, once the feds want to try and do that, then they have to vote to make sure that can happen, in which case, watch nobody take advantage of that, because that doesn't exist. You made that up. That is quite possibly the craziest alt-right conspiracy I think I've heard in quite a while. And keep in mind, in some ways, he's not even completely, like, he's completely insane, but in some ways his policies aren't. You know, he wants to pull us out of these trade deals, he wants to end the wars. You know, he seems like that really weird type of person. He actually even supports limited forms of gun control, specifically for the mentally ill. Which is a little bit of a blanket statement, mind you. Or anyone receiving public aid or housing, which is... wouldn't that blatantly violate the Second Amendment? You live in the wrong house, so you can't have a gun. Like, that's a clear Second Amendment violation. Just obviously outright. However, notice one of the reasons he gives. He starts talking about gangs, and he says, all these black and Hispanic housing complexes are populated by thousands of these street gang thugs, living in subsidized housing where they hide their guns and plan their killings. So even when he's kind of starting to make a good point, he does it on the excuse of racism. And it's just funny to me. And for that matter, I actually have gone through his website. It looks like it was made in 2003, mind you. Which, honestly, that was the last year Thurman was in the Senate, so maybe he was trying to replace him at the time. Hey, what, you could see this guy follow up after Thurman, couldn't you? Really? And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is, if you look at the bottom of his website, you can see it has like an elephant, like, you know, the typical Republican elephant, but it has a Confederate flag on it. And I'm just sitting there going, you know they lost, right? However, when it looks at flags, the first one is the Confederate flag, and it says, number 1, this flag represents to millions of white Americans a symbol of white pride and white resistance, is the flag of a white counter-revolution. So he's not even trying to pretend, oh no, the Civil War, it was about states' rights or something. No, he's just saying, yeah, it was about white people, well, no, black people. And then, for that matter, white pride, right? White resistance, well, they must not be, white people must be really bad at resistance then because they lost. The Confederates lost the Civil War. I can't believe I have to explain that to people again. And then he has the LGBT flag. It's just 2 lines. This is a flag that represents an attack on traditional Christian morality and religious freedom somehow. Still don't get that one. But just... oh my god. Oh my god, it's like Roy Moore on steroids. Oh god. Go! Go to your heart's contempt, Arthur Jones. I'll be covering you every step of the way, don't worry. I'm Ephrom, and good night.